making the social media bosses criminally liable, that has to be a good thing, isn't it?
I mean, this is a minefield, isn't it? So I think the first thing to say is, absolutely supportive of what these Rebel MPs are trying to do, because I think there's a real risk that without this amendment, not only are you going to have concerns from a free speech point of view with the online safety bill, but it's not going to do what it needs to do on a child safety front. And, obviously I come at this from a point of view both of a children's campaigner, but actually also of a campaign group that, knows only too well how important free speech is and how readily wide powers can be abused, taking away the right of organisations and individuals to free speech. I mean, we experienced that ourselves when we were, deplatformed effectively by PayPal. So I think, given you have this conflict, you have to look at where we are and actually what is the pressing need. And there is no doubt that children are being harmed now because of their exposure to social media and smartphones. So I'm very supportive of what the MPs are doing. I think the criminal liability is a step in the right direction. I do think, though, as a society, we need to ask ourselves, is it enough? Is there more we should be doing? And I think our view on this is actually we need to step back and think, let's look at the hardware, let's look at smartphones, and let's ask whether this ubiquitous smartphone use that sees, 91% of 11-year-olds now own a smartphone. What are we doing? Because whilst they have a smartphone, we can try and regulate content all we want, but the reality is children will always be exposed to some harmful material.
It's amazing that you mentioned that, Molly. I find that mind-boggling that 91% of 11-year-olds have access to a smartphone or have a smartphone. Where does parental responsibility come into all of this? Because, of course, we need to have the legislation in place to give us the boundaries in terms of child safety, child security, and then on the other side, freedom of speech. But surely parental responsibility has to come into the frame as well.
Yeah, I mean, Arlene, that's a question we get asked all the time, and I totally take that on board. And I think, our instincts my instincts as an individual, and also I think us for them's instincts as a campaign group are towards the, libertarian, everyone has a responsibility side, and sort of slightly dubious about state intervention. I will say, though, that there are many areas in life where actually, as a society, we look to the state to help us. So, driving is a good example with this. I think we've got to a point with smartphones where it would be a little bit like saying, teach your children to cross the road. They're all responsible parents. You're responsible for making sure your children don't get killed on the road. But by the way, we don't have any road safety laws. We don't have any speed limits. We don't have any expectation about how adults can act. And I think we are in that kind of wild, wild west now with digital technology where we haven't laid down the right rules of engagement. So actually, whilst acknowledging that the onus is on parents to curb and control their smartphone use, the reality is that is almost impossible given where we have got to with smartphones, where all children have them, where they're bullied sometimes if they don't get on social media, and where schools are now requiring, in some cases, kids to have them. We are doing things very wrong as a society, and I think we need to look at our attitude to, rolling back smartphone use with intervention where needed.